How do you? What's the mechanic for that? Do you like?
Like when reselling, like you would have this store where you sell whatever you find on this flea market stores. You would resell them with the actual value, like to get a reputable store for your own, making it custom. So you would have this other meta loop where you sell whatever you find for cheap for more expensive, getting bigger stores and building your own fashion empires.
So how would you? Okay, let me see if I understand.
That could be the game to look because I remember that I once played a game where you sell to the main just to make more profit, just to sell more money. That's the thing of like finding your pity, going to buy, sell on your stuff, and just you keep going like that.
They even have a system where you that you're really more into the buying routine, and the other half of the day you go to the store. Okay. I don't think like
like 5 things, you know?
okay, you can have like
Oh my God.
you find these
Have you ever seen the Pillar?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I think about
you
it.
can get like a five events where you find oh there's this year loop we actually have to find this old lady like this the actual chance to buy this Steve's.
I mean, maybe you use cards as well, right?
Yes.
Basically, you select a deck, and then you go and fight against, I don't know, the old lady, and then there's just the animation that is playing depending on the cards that you played, right? And you go like, right? So then, in order to find those cool clothes in the whole pie, is it like a loot box that you basically pay to what? To open, and the more you pay, the more chances are, or how do you do that? Like, because isn't it one of the things that it's cool about is the fact that you can go there and find some cool, cheap stuff, right? So there needs to be the same feeling somehow. How do you get that feeling? So we know how we get the feeling of beating the old lady, but how do we get the feeling of actually getting the clothes? Uh-huh. Maybe you have multiple, I don't know, multiple loot boxes, which are, I don't know, the piles of clothes.
Maybe you can choose what stand to go. Like,
Yeah.
for example, this particular stand sells like God clothes, and this one sells street clothes. I don't know. You choose maybe one kind of style, and depending on the style is the stats on the cards that you would buy. For example, like builds. For example, a particular God cheap build would give you this kind of stats. I don't know, bleed, I don't know, critical hits, wall-less, I don't know, street kind of build will get you resistance and will make you more of a tanky build for your deck, kind of.
Or maybe
Like,
you can mix with some kind of play experience, like, I don't know, do penguin or Sims, you know?
like the social.
And you like to custom your
Yeah, yeah.
character.
With the customization aspect.
And that could be,
Yeah.
So why not if we're talking about roguelike games, you're basically this guy or girl that is stuck in this time loop, right? You wake up, you go to the flea market, you choose,
Whatever.
you get something, you get into a fight with somebody else over that, you die. Or maybe you don't die, but maybe you die. You wake up again, and it's like, okay, let's go to the flea market again. It's another day.
Maybe if I try skater calls this time, I would get a better chance of
Yeah,
getting
exactly,
something.
exactly, 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 exactly.
Okay, that sounds more interesting. Yeah.
Uh, yeah, let's think about that because, by the way, I want us to have a sort of idea of a game or of a concept, because if you're gonna go into the the budgeting, I want us to work on a real example. So maybe if we have this concept a bit, maybe we can then start thinking about how we build a budget for it, like a very simple budget for it. So let's see again. Is it a roguelike with cards? You go and you have basically close loot boxes. You bet on them. You might win some of them. You get some items from them, and then you need to fight some other people that bet on the same loot boxes, right? You have that.
One mechanic will be that you also need to spend currency
Yeah.
because you can win a fight, but then
Yeah.
you don't have enough money to actually get those.
Yeah, but the money, the maybe you have some the money that you put in is you can have access to some, I don't know, special clothes, loot boxes or whatever. The one in the corner that nobody goes to because it's only for some special players, right?
And then trying to find the ultimate target of the game, like finding this legendary old lady that will get you out of this time loop.
Yeah, you can have some cool stuff there. But then you put like all those clothes on you, you have like this weird hat and then these shorts and then some high heels. And then those gives you exactly the stats you need. And you wake up next morning and you go to the flea market again. You do the same things. Okay, well, see, this is how games are born. I mean, we haven't talked about the market audience and all that, but cool, let's leave that for another time. Uh, but let's think a bit about the budget for something like this. So there's different types of ways that we look at budgets. And again, this is how we do things in Amber. I told you about the cost check in the business pipeline, the BizDev pipeline. Um, could we think about, let's say, a cost check for this game? How much would this game cost? Just roughly. Let's see. I mean, everybody can put down a number, and then we'll do an estimation that's a bit more well thought. But let's see. How much would you think such a game would cost? Yeah, yeah. This game with clothes and fighting and cards and
Around 50 or 150 pesos, I would say.
thousands, millions.
Thousands, thousands.
Can you write that down for you?
50,000 or 150,000 pesos, I would say, because it's quite complex.
Okay. Anybody else?
Okay, I think it depends. If it's a BP development in which you work with your friend and maybe the code gonna be very low, but if it's a big production, maybe
It doesn't really matter. Like you guys don't need to be right. Like I just think from your perspective, how much would this cost if you would do it, like with your friends or with a company? It doesn't matter. Like, what do you think it would cost for you?
I think the cost should be the same because even if you do it with your friends, you should estimate the same as if you were used to.
How much? Lower? 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 So lower? No, higher. Oh, it's too low. Ah, love. Ah, out of love. Okay, so how much would that love cost?
I would say like near a quarter of a million. It's because it's quite a lot.
You're going higher and higher. I like it.
It's because we were talking about this and the real life hackathon requires so many things, there's so many things involved, so many mechanics that if we translate it, I mean, it's so many mechanics, so many time that we invest to work on those mechanics, make sure that it works right. It will take quite some time to get it right. So I would say that near a quarter of a million, probably lower, but near.
So you say 250,000.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Lower, higher?
I wouldn't know right now. First, need to think about time. And then, well, first, who's gonna
Cool. Let's think about that as well. How much time do you think this would take?
time? I would give 6 months of development.
6 months.
And not even counting for marketing, development, 6 months only.
Okay. So 6 months, 250K.
I wouldn't think that's 250.
More or low?
I would think
More?
yes.
If you say more, I think we need to add more time. Yeah, like around 9, 12 months. Just to make sure that it works right, because 6 months is a little time to test the whole thing. And it could come out really funny. So I would say like around a year.
A year? A year. Do we have more? Do we have less? Around a year?
A year or 14 months.
Somewhere around 13.5 months. Let's say 12 months. Let's say this will be done in 12 months. What's the budget? Like again, just don't think too much about it. For 12 months, how much would this cost? 200,000.
What do you say? How many people?
Maybe not. Maybe what? 5 people? I don't know.
Only in ours.
Probably 10.
But just starting to animation or just like the
No, like
drawings?
character and position.
Okay.
Do you record visual?
Let's say 10 people.
10 people. So, by the way, in the next step, we're going to go into that. But I just want to know, like, roughly how many people? 10 people, 12 months. Okay, what's the budget? 10 people, 12 months. So a team of 10 people for 12 months. Pesos? Dollars?
They're your friend and you don't play salaries.
Yeah, but they need to live somehow, right? You need to have a budget. I mean, are they only working in their spare time? So that means they only work like what? 4 hours per day maximum. Can they do that for 12 months in a row? It's gonna be very tough, right? So you need to be able to support them somehow. 20,000 for 10 people for 12 months, the whole project. 10 people, 12 months. 20,000 would mean what? 2,000 per person per 12 months.
My calculation is basically 2,000
Per person per month. Okay.
plus another extra for marketing.
So that would be what? 250 probably?
Only the people to 40.
240?
Thinking with marketing and all the stuff, I said 300.
300. Okay. So, okay, we're gonna continue now this exercise. So let's say, can somebody write that down, like 10 people, 12 months, $300K, right? US dollars. Right. This is a very simple way of calculating things, like super simple. The first one that I was asking was just the like the cost check, but that one you do again if you have done things like games like this before and you go like, oh, yeah, it's probably like around that, right? So it's okay if you don't have an answer now. But what I will ask you now is think about the team. So out of those 10 people, how do you split the team? How many producers, project managers, artists, designers, engineers, QA? What kind of artists? 2D, 3D, VFX, whatever. So what is the split in the team? How would you guys split that? What kind of what kind of team would you have? Like what is the team split? Like how many producers do you have? How many artists? How many designers? How many software engineers? Right? In that team of 10 people or whatever it is, how do you split them? Do you have one producer, 5 artists, 4 engineers? Do you have 2 producers, 2 designers, 2 artists, 4 engineers? Right? How do you split that? How does the team look like? Because it can't be, I mean, if you have people that do everything, like, okay, you can say, well, it's a team of 3 people and everybody does everything, but it's usually not like that. You need to have like how many. Okay, we have this role called development manager. It's actually a project manager. Do we need that for this project or not? Okay. Boom, they're out. 2D artists. Is this a 2D or a 3D game? Cool. How many artists? 3 or 2? Can we put like one senior and the others are normal artists? Like one that is the leader and 2 that are, yeah? Like this, right? So can you guys see on the screen? Yeah? Let me, whoop. Okay. So, one senior artist, 2 2D artists, no 3D. UI, UI, user interface. One. I'm gonna put it as a normal one, not as a senior. Animators, VFX animators, or are these guys doing the same that thing, or do we need to add somebody here?
Because animation can take.
Cool. 2 animators. An art director.
Now people can play 2 roles, right?
They can, yeah, they can.
Okay, well, I would say that one of the senior artists, that I would say the senior artist should be. Yeah.
By the way, the reason why they're split is because you're gonna see the next part is how much do they cost, and all these roles usually cost different. Okay, game designers. Just one? So 2 game designers. Okay, UX is basically the experience, like making sure that everything is smooth, thinking about that, the whole experience. One, okay. These guys are expensive, by the way. A creative director or the designers are, and the producer maybe is gonna do this role. Okay. BI, I'm not gonna put them in here. Engineers. How many engineers? I'm gonna put a technical director just because I think we'll need a technical director for this. Basically, the person that leads the whole engineering team. So if we have this person, what else do we need for this game? How many?
I would say at least one senior in each team.
So one senior in backend and one senior front end?
And maybe one. Maybe one dancing engineer.
So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 engineers in the team. Pretty senior team. Is that okay? QA? So how many?
Specific QA, I will put probably one.
Just one? Okay. Cool. So this is split by weeks. So what is, let's put 50 weeks for 12 months because they're gonna have probably holidays and stuff. So I'm gonna put 50 here. Now, we need to think about how much they cost, right? Because I just put, this is, yeah. This is their cost per hour. So let's think about how much, let's just put some numbers in there. How much do you think a producer would cost per hour? You can start from the monthly and then divide it by 4 and 40. Yeah. So by 160. No? Let's say, I don't know, they all cost, let's put it like this. I don't know. The producer, and I'm just putting this out of my ass, $20 per hour. The artist, not senior, 15. UI, let's say 15 just for the sake of it. VFX, I would put 20 because they're super expensive. Art director, probably 25. And let's put the producer at 25 as well then. Game designer, 15. UX, 20. Creative director we don't have. Software engineer, 15, 20, and 25. And this guy is then, let's put it at 25 as well. And 10 for the Q tester. Something like that. So by the way, these are not high costs. Usually they're much higher than that. In the market, the costs are much higher than this. So that would take this product to $560,000 US for 1 year. for a team of 15 people. So they're not 10 anymore. They're 15. Cool. So this is a reality check, right? You go and see like, oh shit. So in order for us to do this game, we would probably need to spend more than $500,000. Obviously, you can do it faster, cheaper, smaller team, whatever. I'm just, taking you through the steps here. It's good to have this sort of approach because it can, it gives you a good understanding of how much this will actually cost you. And you go through this whole process, how many people, how long will it take, and all that. You can do some sort of estimate. I mean, do you understand the way this is calculated? It's pretty simple. It's the number of people in the role, the time, the number of weeks, the cost per hour, and then that gives you a total for this role, for example, for all the people in these roles. And then you calculate all those ones. So this is pretty simple, like anybody can honestly do this. Now, what we actually use in Amber, it's a bit more complicated than that. And again, this is just an example. And by the way, when usually when you do this, then you want to go, a bit deeper. Like, is this for the whole project, or is this just for one of the milestones? Do you need all these people throughout the project, or do you need them at the middle of the project? Do you need the QA from the start? Do you need, I don't know, the UX designer up until the end of the project? So then you start, toying with these numbers. And what you end up with is something like this, which is much, much more complex. And this is not easy to replicate, and I'm not going to share this with you because we've worked a lot on this. But basically what this says is, we have a plan that takes us 60 weeks. It's split between multiple milestones. And then you have per each week. So these are the weeks. This is week 1. This is a week. So for each week, then you go into the planning and you say, okay, so for this first milestone, that's milestone 1, right? This is milestone 1. And for milestone 1, for example, we want to have only the concept finished, the game design document, the technical documentation, the technical architecture, whatever. So what do we need for that? And then you put in, okay, so for this period, we need the producer or half of an executive producer, 1 producer, and then you start adding. How many lead game designers, UX designers, and basically you start populating the plan per each week based on how you want to split your features, right? So I know I have these milestones. Within each milestones, I know what I want to deliver. So these are the people that I need per each milestone. And you end up with something, again, that looks like this. You have people split for all these weeks, right? For example, since I need to add like an extra level designer in the 13th week, because that's when I need to deliver something that needs that extra level design. I need an extra Unity developer from the 18th week and all that. So this is basically the level of complexity that you need to arrive to if you actually want to be super, super, super safe. Yeah. Thoughts on this? Would you guys, I mean, would it be enough to use the other one? I mean, I think that might be enough for start, right? Just make sure that you split it into smaller chunks, so you don't have only this. Like this shouldn't be like the whole project. You should have like multiple tabs like this per milestone, maybe per week, per whatever. And if you do that, you're gonna end up actually with this one. It just depends on how deep you want to go. It's just a matter, it's just a method of basically trying to make sure that you calculate and you plan everything. Things are going to change, by the way. Things are always going to change, but at least you start with something. So instead of starting with, 100,000 pesos and then realizing that you spent $500,000, you can start with $500,000 and then you realize, okay, so maybe I need $50,000 more. That's much more manageable if you already have the $500,000. Again, this helps you plan for that and understand the amount of effort that is required for this. This one I think I can share with you because it's so super simple. It's basic. Do we have any more questions in the chat? Because I think I stopped the. No? Okay, just let me know when that happens. Okay. Fun? Numbers are super fun. Again, I hope you guys can use this. It's, I don't know how much fun it is, but it is an extremely important tool. Because again, it also forces you to plan. Like, okay, if I'm gonna pay so much for this guy or girl, I need to make sure that I make the best use of their time. And you can do the same thing, like if your friends are, doing this in overtime, like in their 4 hours per day, you can do the same thing, right? You can calculate because you can put in there, okay, so each week they're only going to work, what, half the time that normally, so not 40 hours, but 20 hours. And again, you can actually start to see how much that costs. Cool. Any questions on the budgeting side? Oops, sorry. Oh my God. Any other things that you might want to know around that?
We're going to call this in like, for instance, when errors happen, when mistakes happen, or maybe the project is problem, like you have to get new people, maybe replace someone, like you gotta fix something with like staffing more people, new people. How do you deal with it? Can you discuss with the client? If it's like an internal project, how do you have to plan something for like for making this like less of a problem? I don't know what to say, like,
I mean, the thing that you can do is be a bit pessimistic at the start when you do that planning. So you have a bit of buffer, right? You can plan, okay, so let's say that, by your calculations, this is going to be a 12 months project with a 10-person team or a 15-person team actually, and it costs 500K. And you need to start thinking, well, I might be wrong. Things are going to happen. So let's add some percentages on top of that. So let's make sure that depending on the situation, you have all those three things that you can toy with. It's either time, people, or budget, or money, right? Which one of those can you toy with? Usually it's 2 out of 3 or 1 out of 3, but never all 3 of them, except for some really good edge cases. But then you need to plan like, okay, so I have 12 months and that's it. I cannot extend this any longer, but let's make sure that I have, I don't know, 100K more in the budget, just just for unforeseen circumstances. That might mean that you can add more people to the team, right? Or you can have more time, which also means more budget, but you keep the same team, right? So you need to be a bit pessimistic at the start, not super pessimistic, because otherwise, if you say it's going to cost 500,000 and it actually only costs 100, again, you end up in the same situation where the client is going to come to you and say, the hell, right? You asked for me for 500K and was fine to give that to you, but you clearly have no idea how to estimate, right? So you're really bad at estimating. So maybe next time we're not going to work together. But other than that, if you don't have this buffer or you've already eaten into the buffer, when you look at the planning, whenever you see something that is changing, especially if you add something to the planning, something needs to come out. Like if you have a very clear limit of, let's say, a budget, you have a list of features, like a backlog of features. If you add something in because you realize, oh, we really need this feature, this is so important, you put it in there, something must come out. Because otherwise, you need to do everything that's going to take more people, more time, more money. So that's the other way that you should manage it. Anything that you put in, something must come out. Like if you have like the top of in the backlog, if it's prioritized, you put it in there as a top priority. The things that are lower in priority, like the bottom of it, just cut them out. You're never going to do them, right? It's just balancing this. Anything comes in, something must go out. There's no magic solutions to this. You can always say, I'm going to add more people. It's going to cost you more money. Everything has some sort of consequences. You add new features, you remove some features. So you start the project with some things that you are clearly defined, especially the budget, and that needs to be kept in balance, right? That's all there is to it, somehow. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Anything else on the budgeting? Cool. Planning your project. This is the real fun stuff. So we have this thing called a GDF, a game development framework in Ember. We don't publicize it that much. It's just that this is how we actually structure the way that we work. It's a lot. It's a lot around setting up some milestones, creating a structure to get feedback on what you're working on. Make sure that again you have the milestones and the right people to look at your product at certain points. And most importantly, you need to get your product, your game, in front of players as fast as possible. You might be super experienced, and you might have done games a long time. And by the way, this is very much on mobile, but you never know how well your game is gonna perform until you actually put it in the hands of people that actually play it. You might play it for like a year and go like, oh my god, this is amazing. Oh, this is great. And then you put it on the market and it just flops. And you go like, what the hell? And then you start realizing, oh shit, wait, it's because of certain things. It's because of the theme is actually not a good fit with the audience. It's because the, I don't know, the gameplay is a bit too fast for the type of audience that we have here. Like, that's why all those things you need to validate them as fast as possible. Like, if you have, let's take for example this game with the, with the clothes and with the granny beating. You need to validate all those things as fast as possible. Like, are people gonna be interested in this? Are people gonna be interested in, I don't know, opening up loot boxes and finding clothes? Are they gonna be interested in this type of mixture of roguelike and beat 'em up and fashion, right? You need to make sure that you have those features in the game as fast as possible, even if they're not polished, and then you give that to players one way or another. You can do like small soft launches, like limited soft launches. You can even start with, I don't know, just sending that to 20 people that you know and just getting feedback from them initially, right? But you need to validate your assumptions. Like, we think this is going to be a really cool game, right? You beat up, again, old ladies at the flea market. Sounds super fun. But who knows? Maybe it's not actually. People are going to go like, oh my God, why? Like, she looks like my grandma. Like, well, why are you guys doing this? This is horrible, right? So that's what I mean. Like, it might sound super cool, but you need to validate that as fast as possible. Let me see. I have a comment here. Da, 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 da. Can you send me the link again for the comments? Oh, it's the StreamYard, right? Oh, it's a different one. Oh boy. Come on, come on, come on. It's not a good. You send it to me twice and I cannot open it. Okay, thanks. Chat. Comments. Okay, so comments. A lot of comments. What has been your worst estimation experience and how you solved it? Jesus Christ. Actually, you know it, Jorge, because he's the one that asked it. We had a project recently, not a cheap one, so few $1 million. We budgeted that, or the budget that we sent to the client was actually 3 times less than it should have been. That's a huge ass difference. We've lost that contract because of that. It was a really, really good project and a good pitch. We just made a mistake in when we were doing those calculations. So then we went back to them and basically we told them, look, we can't really do this for the budget that we sent you. We made a mistake. It's actually 3 times higher. And obviously they were like, whoa, 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 we don't actually have that money. So bye, unfortunately. So now we are, because of that, now we are very, very careful when we send these budgets to the clients, and we do various rounds or multiple rounds of checking, and we do it with the development team as well. So the actual team comes in and says, yeah, we can do this for that amount of dollars.
In that situation, what made you know that there was a mistake? Was it part of the development team? Was it the purchasing team?
It was we added some new producers to look at that. Unfortunately, because the development team was busy on another project, they didn't really have time to look at the estimations. Once they did, they went like, no, 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 this is way, 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 way too low. But we already sent the email basically. So then we had to do a lot of back and forth with the client, like, okay, guys, sorry, it was too low. Let's see what we can do for that amount. Basically, we couldn't build something nice for that amount. So at the end, it was like, well, we can't. So that's why now we don't send anything without the actual development team taking a look at it. Like the larger development team taking a look at it, saying like, yeah, we can do this. This makes sense. Worst estimation. What do you recommend to guys who are starting to do estimations for clients? Triple check 3 times with other people that have done estimates before. No, I would say don't be. There's this risk when I said it before that you get in front of this big client and they say, yeah, cool, we want to do this with you, and it costs this amount, and you go like, awesome, but you know that you cannot do it in that amount, like it's way, way too low. You shouldn't say yes, because it's gonna affect you anyway. It's gonna affect either the project, the team, or the client, or all three of them. So you need to push back. If you're right about it and if you're realistic, just push back and say like, this is why this is gonna cost this much. And then maybe you change the scope, the amount of things that you put in there, but you should never commit to something that you're not comfortable with. Do you add a protection percentage in the initial budget calculation? Yeah, as I said, it depends. It depends on how safe you feel with that. So it can be a few to a bit more than few percentages. Yeah. Okay. Oh, think what? No. Those were the questions. Cool. Let's go into the project timeline. Any other questions on the budgeting estimates? No? Okay. So, as I was telling you, the GDF. This is how we usually look at a project. You're gonna have multiple milestones. It might be these milestones, it might be other milestones, but it usually is something like this. But you should be, we are also very flexible. We have clients for which we have 10 milestones instead of these ones, but usually these are the big ones. You start with, we talked about the pitch, right? The pitch phase. If you win that, or if that is proven, you can go into prototyping and basically get your first feel of how that actually plays. It can be like super rough. It doesn't need to look good. It just need to give you a sense of, does this feel right when I'm actually playing it? It also doesn't need to be built to last. So usually prototypes, you just build them and then you forget about them in terms of, like the way that you do your technical architecture. You don't usually build and on top of the prototype. If the prototype is successful, then you basically start the project from zero. Because you need to be fast. The whole idea about prototyping, you need to be fast, so you can't really think about how do I build this to last 12 months. No, I need to build something in a week, something for you to play. The MVP is the minimum viable product. Sometimes it's called first playable, sometimes it's called vertical slice. I like the MVP name because I think it's a better fit. Basically what it says is you've already started working on a project. Um, you you actually started working on the whole one, so you think about the architecture and all that. The MVP is like a much improved version of the prototype. Like it proves all the things that you want to test, like all the major things that you want to validate. Again, in our case, in our example, what would that be? You need to, let's say, open up some loot boxes, uh, put the gear or the clothes on you, have a fight, and I think that's probably it. Again, it's the part that actually you're gonna do a lot, and you need to validate if it's actually fun. So you build that to a level that is polished enough, so it's not a prototype level of polish. It's much higher. And you basically, yeah, you test the major gameplay concepts. Um, then you go into, again, you can have multiple other milestones, but the next big one, it's usually soft launch. Soft launch means you have a polished experience that has all the features, all the major features, all the core gameplay loop, all the meta loop, all the basic monetization, and you actually launch the game. Soft launch, different from hard launch. So soft launch in the mobile industry means that you launch it on to a limited number of people. Usually how you do this is you launch it to some locations that you want to test in. That would mean, for example, we used to do proxy locations for the US, right? Because usually the market, the biggest market is in the US. So in order to not launch it in the US yet, because it's going to be a lot of competition there, you launch it in markets that have similar audience to the US. And that can be, I don't know, Philippines, it can be Canada, it can be Sweden, for example. So it's similar audience with similar behaviors. So you launch that, like that core experience, super polished core experience in the soft launch with enough content to last players for a week, 2 weeks, a month. And in this period, what you do is you track what your users are doing. You have a lot of tracking into your game, and you just look at, okay, how are users behaving? The most important ones is, are they coming back? Like, have they installed the game? Have they entered the game? And are they coming back the next day? Are they coming back the third day? Are they coming back the fourth, the seventh, the 14th, the 13th? That's what we call retention. It's basically how many people come back day 2, day 3, day 7, day 14, or day 30. And you're going to see that that usually goes like down a lot. A really successful mobile game has probably a day 1, day 2 retention of between 40 and 60%. That means that people like it. They like the concept. They like the way they feel it. A super good game has a day 30, like a really long-term retention of 9 to 12% probably. That means 9 to 12% of the people that install the game return to it by day 30. So in 1 month, they do return into the game. That means that, it has a lot of stickiness. There's a lot of engagement there, and there's enough content for those for those players to come back into the game for 30 days, right? Then you have other metrics that you look at, like monetization, like how much do they pay, where do they pay, and then you start looking into like the details. What are they actually doing in the game? Where do they drop off? Are they things that they are not seeing? Hey, look, we have a shop in the game. Nobody's clicking on the shop button. Why is nobody clicking on the shop button, right? And again, it's tracking gives you this information, but then you need to figure out yourself, like something is wrong. Nobody's buying anything. Why is nobody buying anything? Well, apparently they are not clicking the shop button. Why are they not clicking the shop button? Let's look at it. Well, it's green on green, right? And you're like, nobody knows it's a button or something like that, right? It points you into, it points the fact that, you have some issues, but you need to figure out how to solve them. There are other things that happen during the soft launch, which are very specific for mobile games, is when you have like a solution for this type of issues, you push out a fix, right? So the button is green on green. Cool, let's push out a fix, let's make it red on green. But let's also push out another fix that makes it blue on green, right? So there is a system that is called, A/B testing. You basically push out multiple solutions for the same issue, and then you see which one performs better. And you might see you have, like 50% or 80% of your users still see red on red. That's your like control group. 10% of your users see green on red, and 10% see blue on red, right? Sorry, or it was green on green, or whatever, you get the point. And then depending on which one performs better, let's say that green on red performs better, then you decide, okay, this is the best solution, and then you push that fix to every user that you have. That's the kind of things that you do in soft launch. You might start with retention number, for example, that are lower. You have this period to actually improve on it. So if your target for day one retention is 50% and you are at 35 or 40%, you go like, okay, we can actually fix this, right? It's a small enough, it's a manageable increase. And then you start going like, okay, how can we help them? Maybe they don't understand the rules. Maybe they want to change some things. Then you push out all those fixes. If you are like 20% and your target is 50, you can just kill it. Like you should just like, it's impossible. You're probably going to reach 30%. You're going to struggle a lot to reach 30%, but you're never going to reach your target. The lower it is, the more it means that something is not working and something is not right with the actual core experience. That's why you need to test it fast enough so you don't end up spending $500,000, right? So you don't spend all your budget, you spend a quarter of your budget, and then you see it's not going to work, kill it. Let's use the rest of the money for something else, for example. If everything goes according to plan and you reach your numbers that you want, then you go into hard launch. Hard launch is basically when you launch to everybody, everywhere. It's the worldwide launch, basically. And after that, you get into the actual meat of the project, which is called live ops, where you do this type of analysis and improvements on a daily basis. So you get the data, you look at the data, you see how the game is performing, you try to understand why something is not working, you dig into the data, you try to find solutions, you test the solutions, you push them out, and you do that constantly, day in and day out. It's very interesting because it becomes a different type of animal at that point, and it might require some different type of people, right? People that you go from a project that you launch a version every 3 months for your milestones to a project that needs to launch to push out new things almost daily. So that sort of mentality might need, you might need to change some of the people that work in the project because they are very set on, I need to deliver, in big chunks every 3 months. They will find it very hard to instantly switch to this mentality of, I need to fix now, 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 now. Which is not, again, it's not a bad thing. It's just, some people are more fit to do that, like really, really quick development, and others are more fit to do, I'm just going to take my time and do things super, super right. Questions on this? Yeah, I mean, this is the ideas that you can get, and then you get them into pitching. By the way, this is going to be like the last part of today's presentation. So again, any questions that you might have, just ask me. We have, it's not really implemented, but we want to have this, this green light process for each of those milestones. And I suggest you have this for your teams or for your projects. It's basically before all those milestones, you need to have a meeting where you say, this is good, this is bad, continue, stop, or, make some improvements. It should have like this type of meeting. Usually you should prepare for this. You should have like a pre-green light meeting where you have like an agenda, you have some documents, the build, and you have some questions that you need to answer, like those are the goals. You have the green light meeting where you present it, you ask questions, you get feedback, you decide if you go or you don't go forward. And then you have like a post green light update where you basically let everybody know what happened or other steps that you might need to take that came out of that meeting and the discussion. I mean, this is team management stuff, right? This is team and project management stuff. It's about making sure you have the goal and then making sure that you have communicated whatever happened to the rest of your team. Same for the rest of the milestone. You should have like a kickoff meeting, that internal review before the gate meeting, and the gate meeting, as I told you. Yeah, I'm gonna share this with you. It basically goes through all of these stages. Are there any of these stages that you want to ask about? Like the prototyping or the MVP or the soft launch or the hard launch? We can stop at any of this if you have some questions around it.
What would you say is a great way of defining milestones? Is it communication with client? Is it
Of defining milestones?
yes?
I mean, the these are some of the, I mean, this is pretty general again. You're gonna need to answer some questions. That's why you have those milestones. And you have the question that you need to answer at the prototype stage. Again, is this feeling good? You can call that whatever you want it. You can call it milestone 3, whatever. It doesn't really matter. But you need to answer that question, right? The sooner, the better.
I see the gates on the end of each phase, and that's something that's really interesting to me. What to make those differences in the different development stages to take your frame. That's really like what's not really clear to me is as a part of the development team, sometimes I think this comes more for an outsider's view, like for example the production team or the business development to identify where we are leading development, where are we taking the milestones and defining where we're taking the frame.
It's not, I mean, by the way, it's one team. Even BizDev is still part of the team. Production is still part of the team. but this concerns the development team as well. Like these are not required by biz dev or client or production. These are required by the project. Because again, all these things that you want to validate, you validate them not because there's a rule somewhere in the book that says all producers must validate or all clients must validate. No, because if you want to have a successful project and if you want to reduce your risks, you need to validate all these things as fast as possible. So, and all the development teams should be aware of this, and they should want this. They should. You don't want to end up in a situation where you spend 1 year and then you test the game and see it's not fun. It's better to spend 1 month on something super rough and go like, oh, cool, this is cool, or maybe we should change something, and you spend a bit more time and then go like, okay, actually now this is cool, than to find out at the end of the project that that wasn't actually cool. And that's something that the development team needs as well. Like they need that validation because they don't want to work 11 extra months on something that wasn't cool to start with, right? I don't know if that was what you were asking. Yeah? Okay. My pleasure. Yeah, again, this is about validating. All these things validate something. The fun of the game, maybe even the art style, the way that it looks, the way that, I don't know, certain features interact with each other. This is a very general overview of it, like for a normal game. But depending on what you want to validate and how often you want to validate those, you can split this however you want and call them however you want them. But again, the important thing is check on them, check on your project often, validate your assumptions as fast as possible, and adapt when things need to change. And then keep an eye on the budget as well. Like, okay, so if I spend more time here, then it means that I have less time there. And also, don't be afraid to take some hard decisions if you see like something doesn't work. Like if you're at a prototype and you spend 1 month and it's not fun, you spend another month and it's not fun. You spend another month in the prototype and go like, at some point you need to stop, right? You can't just double down and say, well, this is better than last time. It still sucks, but it's still better than last time. So let's invest 1 million into this just because, right? You need to just cut it. So there's a question here, is the length of the soft launch related to the project size? What's a recommended length for this stage? I think it's connected to the complexity of the project. There's no clear rules for this other than do it as fast as possible. But again, please remember that soft launch is, at the end of it, when you test something in soft launch, the feature needs to be final and polished. So it's not like the prototype, it's not even like the MVP, it's an actual final and polished and complete experience. It's just that you don't have everything in it. You have like the core gameplay loop, it's polished, it's working, everything is it's interacting with everything else. You have everything that you have all the trackers in there, and then you can start testing it. Again, this is like the hardest. I think this is the hardest milestone because this is the one, like for all these ones, these are more subjective, right? It's you and your team and maybe some other people that go like, it's cool. This one is when you launch it to other people and you go like, champagnes, oh, awesome, we love this game, oh, it's so cool. And then you look at the numbers and go like, nobody's playing this, right? So again, you don't want to spend all your budget to get to this point and realize that you don't actually have a good, it's not necessarily, it doesn't actually mean that this is not a good product. It doesn't work for that moment, for that theme, for that audience. There's so many great teams that have launched great products that just didn't work. It doesn't mean that the team sucks or the game sucks. It's just that for some reason in that moment it didn't work, right? Cool. So we have all this in here if you wanna look at it. Hard launch, yeah, sprints. Um, so we usually we use Scrum and Agile for our projects. I think some or most of you are probably familiar with that. Scrum and Agile methodologies basically mean iterate fast, again, adapt. Um, it's a way of managing uncertainty or unknowns. Even if you have like the project planned from the start, uh, it gives you this chance of, if you find something new, you can then change the plan, right? That's basically what we're looking at. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Agile and all this. Sprints, Scrum. I know you are. Yeah. So it.
What's the difference between a milestone and a sprint?
So a sprint, a milestone is a big chunk of time. Like it can be, I mean, it can be like 2 weeks, but if it's 2 weeks, it's basically a sprint. Let's say it's 3 months. In a milestone, you might have multiple sprints. So you might have 3 months milestone with 6 2-week sprints in it. The difference is for a sprint once you start it, you shouldn't adapt it inside of it. Like you shouldn't change the goals of that sprint inside while you are in the sprint. The sprint basically means you meet with the team, you go like, cool, this is what we need to hit. How do we do this? Boom, 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 boom. Like, okay, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do this. I need your help and I need your help. We have 1 week or 2 weeks to do this. Can we do this? What's the plan? You really, really detail the plan. And then you go like, cool, team, go for it. And they just run for, that's why it's called a sprint. They run for 2 weeks. And they come back at the end of it with, okay, this is what we delivered. But you need to be there with them to answer to answer their questions, to make sure that they build exactly what they said they're gonna build. You need to set it up correctly, so when they start, they don't start running into another direction that you actually want to because you weren't capable of actually explaining that to them. The whole idea for this is that you end the sprint, you take a look at, okay, where are we? Are we where we want to be? Are we going to continue running in this direction? Well, no, let's run a bit in this direction. Okay, next sprint, and then you realign again, right? That's the whole idea behind this, right? You have like these very, very clear goals. You stop, you reassess, you advance a bit, you stop, you reassess, you advance a bit, and so on and so forth. And then at the end of that, you can have like a milestone, like a big one, where you know that you need to deliver the prototype, for example, or the MVP, or the whatever. But the super important thing here, and now I'm talking for people that have been working on. I don't know, maybe there's people in the audience online that have been working in Agile and in Scrum and in that. These are all tools. There's this people are tempted to look at these project management methodologies and say, ooh, that sounds so cool. I'm just going to use it, and that will mean that my project will be successful if I just follow the rules. And it's not quite like that. You need to not all, these are tools, you can have, you can see there, you can have like Scrum, and you can have like Kanban, which is a different type of agile methodology. You can have other types of project management tools like, I don't know, PMP and Prince and Waterfall, and these are just ways of structuring and working. Because we work in, the games are such a vibrant environment to work in, and there's a lot of unknowns, and you get feedback and things change, and you work with people and somebody gets sick or somebody has a better idea or whatever. There's a lot of things that can change. So you need to be able to have multiple tools at your disposal, and Agile and Scrum is one of them, but you need to be able to have others as well. I've seen people that have this religious almost adoration to project management tools, where they just believe if I just apply it the right way, things are gonna be okay, which is never the case. You need to be flexible and adaptable, and in the end, agile means that you need to adapt and to be flexible. Just want to put that out there for posterity so people see that. Um, but yeah, this is about like all this planning, from the big plan to milestones to sprints. It's about breaking down a huge idea into manageable chunks, right? You can look at a super complex game and go like, I have no idea where to start because it's huge. It's like, how do I, like, what do I start with? Uh, and this helps you, like breaking down a bit. Like, what's the first thing that you want to do? What is the ultimate goal? How do you build towards that? And usually the way that you do it is, you have like your goal, you know what you want to build, like what kind of game you want to build, the core gameplay loop, the audience, your pillars, your market opportunity, your budget, all that. You have that idea. Um, and then you start going like, okay, so it's going to take me 3 years. I need to build this type of experience with this type of features. I need to start with these things because they are the most important, and the other ones I'm gonna plan for them like this. That the further that plan is in the future, the more possibility that is going to change. And you don't need to plan, like you don't need to know exactly what's going to happen 3 years from now. You need to know what's going to happen, first of all, in the next 2 weeks, then in the next month, then in the next 3 months. The more you think about those things, the less details you're going to have about them. Because you need to be pretty damn sure what you're going to do in the next 2 weeks. You're going to need to be pretty sure for the next month, kind of sure, or an idea about the next 3, and the rest are like a bit fuzzy, right? Because after these first 2 weeks, things are going to change because you're going to learn something new and you're going to go, oh, so I need to adapt a bit. I'm changing a bit the gameplay mechanic. I'm changing a bit something about it. But I know the next 2 weeks what I'm going to do, and the next 2 weeks, and the next 2 weeks. So basically, your visibility will decrease, the further you look in the future, which is fine, as long as you know where you want to go. You focus on the things that you want to validate quickly, and then you adapt your whole plan based on the things that you've learned. It's not the funny thing about this is that it's not, if you think about it, if you talk about it, it's not that hard, right? Just focus and be adaptable and make sure that everybody knows what they're doing and people communicate with each other. But again, because these are complex projects and we're dealing with people, it's actually pretty difficult because you're going to have so many things to think about, so many things to balance at the same time, that even though that simple thing of keep your focus, know where your goal is, something is going to be like super fuzzy. You're going to be like, oh, I have no idea what I'm doing. But the good thing about it is that if you keep thinking about these simple things, it's gonna help you a lot, because it's not that hard if you can actually concentrate on what you what you need to do. Cool. These were the sprints. Yeah, the sprint recommendations, as I told you. Again, how you prepare for that. The way that we structure our teams. By the way, feel free to ask things about teams and management now if you have. So we usually have a producer, a development manager, which is what you would call a project manager. Is just that they do, because we are a more complex company, they do a bit things of a bit higher complexity than just a project manager, and a BI, business intelligence manager, or product manager from in other companies. These are the people that usually lead a project. There's another role that we have in Amber that is called a game director. The game director is also part of this team. I need to add it here. And because we're working with clients so much, it's a vital role, because that's the role that we assign to basically understand the client. The way that it works is that we usually have clients in North America, like in the US, and we have these game directors that are US based, so they sit close-ish to the client. They understand the client, they speak the same language, the same culture and all that. And they can understand, like, if a client comes in and says, I want a action RPG game, the game director, which is a really experienced producer actually, can understand, can try to make sure that the client also figures out that idea a bit better. Like, they should be the ones that understands what the client wants even better than the client. And then they work with the team to refine that idea, and they do a bit of back and forth before they actually come back with the actual concept. And then their role is to manage the client during the duration of the project. Again, if you're working with clients, somebody will need to do that. Somebody will need to do the client management aspect. It doesn't really matter how you call it. It's just that somebody will need to do it. The closer you are to them, the more of a personal relationship you have with them, the more successful they're going to be. That's why we have these super cool guys in the US that help us with this.
How do you deal with clients? How is this relationship? I know this is like a really open question. But what would you recommend? What are your guidelines when dealing directly with clients?
With what? With the client?
Yes.
I'm not necessarily the best person to answer that. I'm just learning a lot of this myself these days. But clients are, or especially the clients that we have, these are companies that have been in the games industry for a long time. They know how this works. It is a bit of a dance. It is a bit of politics. It is a bit of understanding what that person thinks but doesn't say. But usually it's about figuring out what they actually need, because they might say, again, I need, I don't know, a Mesh 3 game with bananas or whatever. And you need to understand that, well, that's not what they want. They want to, I don't know, they have an IP, and they want to use that IP to launch a game that is successful before, I don't know, a movie with that IP actually comes out the market. And there's a difference between those two. Like, one is the client thinking that they know how we should solve their problem instead of actually telling us what their problem is.
Maybe they might have this like super good IP and they want to match your game and you say, well, if you want this to promote this product, if you want this to promote your movie,
Yeah.
match streaming might not be a fit for you.
Yeah, I mean, in this case, we could go and say, well, if you have this movie coming out, you have this IP that you want to use, you don't want to do a match 3, for example, right? Like if that's the need, if your need is to promote your IP by that date, we're gonna give you a better solution than what you have right now in your head. So again, it shouldn't be, okay, the client says that they want a match 3 with that IP, let's do it. The question is, what do they actually want? Oh, so they actually want to promote, that's their goal, is to promote that. Cool, we get it. What's the best way to promote that? It's not a match 3, it's something else. It's an MMORPG, right? I don't know, something like that. But it's, again, it's like when you talk with anybody, like you need to understand what they're actually saying. With the added complexity in this case is that, those guys or, that company actually holds the purse. They have the money, so they're always gonna have a bit more weight to the discussion because then they're like, well, I'm paying you. Why don't you do what I'm telling you to do? Thankfully, the more money they have, the less they act like that because they know they are successful because they haven't acted like that, right? Uh, but even then, you need to make them understand that, or you need to show them that, look, we are the experts. This is why we are the experts. And we suggest that you should do this instead of that. And they usually are much more grateful when we do that instead of just saying, they're also not, most of them are also not looking for teams that just execute because they don't want to manage teams that execute, right? They just want to go like, guys, we heard that you are awesome. You have awesome ideas. You can produce awesome games. Just tell us what's going to work. Because otherwise, what we show them is, I don't know, you just tell us and we're just gonna execute. And then that for them means, well, shit, I need to hire a management team to manage these guys, right? And they don't want that. Okay. Apart from the meetings, I think this is about the client management as well. So apart from the meetings, how do you make sure the team understands what's to be expected to deliver, and how do you minimize misunderstandings? If I would have a one-line answer to this, I would be a very rich person. So I don't. This is the the core of managing teams. So again, I'm going to repeat that. Apart from having meetings, how do you make sure that the team understands what is expected to deliver, and how do you minimize misunderstandings? So you have a team, they need to deliver something. How do you make sure that they understand that and that there's no confusion? Usually most of the issues that I've seen are related exactly to that. Like the team doesn't actually know what they need to deliver. They start to think that they need to deliver something. Then they find out that that was not what they were supposed to deliver. They get confused. Again, nobody explains it to them. Why, how. Nobody gives them clarity and focus. And that's when, the team starts losing confidence in the management team, in the client, start figuring out things by themselves. And usually if you don't give people an answer, they're going to come up with their own answer, and it's usually way worse than reality. So apart from meetings, how do you minimize these risks? Well, you do a lot of, no, it's not you do a lot of meetings, but there's this, you need to over communicate things. I think that a lot of people, including myself, I'm more than, I've done this a lot of times, even recently. I talk with people and I tell them, this is the situation, and then I go like, it's taken care of. And then 1 week later, I hear that those guys are unhappy. Why? Because they think something is going to happen. But I just told them, like, what's the confusion? And it's not on them, it's on me not making sure, like, guys, did you understand? Like, because I think they understood, they go like, nah, okay. And I do not check up on that. So I need to keep going and going and going and repeating the same things over and over and over and over again, because this is how we work. We need to keep hearing the same thing over and over and over again before we actually go like, oh, yeah, okay, I get it. So it's about over communicating. It's about um, getting the team involved in in planning the project, getting the team clarity, or not necessarily, but also clarity, but basically showing the team what's happening on a constant basis, right? Being transparent with them. Guys, this is what's happening, this is why. So they don't have a reason to go like, why is this guy telling us this? What actually is happening? Like, no, they have access to the information. Guys, it's there for you. Like, and they go like, okay, I don't even care. I trust you at that point, right? But I think it's actually around always making sure that they have a very clear focus. Like, guys, this is what we need to do. This is why we need to do it. This is what's going to happen after we finish this. And again, being super open with them. If an issue happened, tell them about the issue. If something changed, tell them why those things change. That's why, I also told you that a lot of my job is about, talking with people, because that's what it comes down to. Like in a project management leadership position, you're gonna talk with people a lot, because you can do like cool stuff like planning and budgeting and we put numbers in an Excel. If you don't communicate that to people clearly, constantly, people are just they're gonna make up their own mind, and you don't want them to think things are different from what they actually are, right? So it's a lot about understanding what the team feels, talking to them, making sure that they know what the direction is. It's again, it sounds basic, but it's not, because again, we're cats that need to be herded constantly, which is, it's totally understandable, because people have a lot of stuff on their mind, and it's our role as leaders to give them clarity on their goals and their future in the teams. I don't know if that answered your question, person from the internet. But it's over communicating, making sure that people have a focus, making sure that people have a goal to run towards. Yeah, there's a lot of, again, most of the issues that you're going to find in a team come from the things that I just said, like people don't really know what the plan is. And then it comes from this interaction, people interacting with each other, people going like, oh, that guy's an asshole, and that guy doesn't help me, and whatever, stuff like that. Then there's a few things that you can do to fix all of these things. Whenever you start a project, besides having the goal, the focus, all that, you should also clarify with the team, together with them, what are the roles in the team and what are the responsibilities and the expectations for each of those roles. Because I've had so many numerous situations where, the producer, saying, oh, well, the DM is not doing what the DM should do. And then the DM will go like, well, the producer is not doing what they should do, and then the rest of the thing are, and that usually happens because people go into these projects and these teams and these roles with an image in their head. Like they're sure, like I know exactly, like it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be super cool, super easy. This is a super easy project. I know what needs to happen. I know what I need to do. I know what that person needs to do, and I know what that person needs to do. It's gonna be perfect. 2 weeks later, everything is on fire. Everybody's like, it's fucking craziness. And that's because that image in everybody's head that is perfect is not the same. My image in my head is not the same as your image in your head or your image. And we are in the same team and we meet in the first day and we're like, yeah, this is going to be cool, 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 right? And we're so sure of it. And again, you solve that by we sit down together and go like, cool, what do you do? Oh, I'm gonna do this, this, and this. What do you do? I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do this, this, and then we go like, well, can I take that thing from you because I think I can do that better, and then you take this thing from him, and then we basically start making sure that all the needs in a project are covered by somebody. The right mentality there is like, I don't care what my role is, I don't care what your role is or what your role is. There's things that need to be done. Somebody needs to do it, and we are the ones that need to do it. The way that we split them, honestly, doesn't matter. Obviously, you're gonna be good at, I don't know, you're gonna be a great business intelligence manager, and you're gonna be a great producer, and I'm a great DM, right? Some of those core things it's going to be ours because we know, like I know that you can do that better than I am, but there's other things that you might not know that you should do, but I know that you should do them, right? So you need to have that meeting at the beginning of the project where you basically just hash this out. So instead of then panicking, and I don't want to end up 3 months in the project just hating you guys, but it's going to happen if you don't have that meeting at the beginning. And it's not because we are bad people, it's because I have an expectation that I haven't told you, but I still have that expectation from you in my head. But I never told you about it, And again, it's communicating, it's talking with other people. So the clarity on the project, the goals, the focus, and the clarity on the roles and what we should do, responsibilities, those are the main things that can mess up a project. And they're easily fixable, it's just that they take effort and time, and you need to keep doing them over and over and over and over and over again. Oh, communication and meetings. Okay, this is another one. Questions? No? Yeah, I mean, there's different things that you can do. You can have like daily communications. You can have like weekly ones, monthly meetings, project reviews. There's one that I like that is called, it's a version of OKR or QBO. OKRs are objective key results. I don't remember which company started this. IBM or something. I don't remember exactly who. But I've seen this adapted in a few companies, and it's a way of later, after I finish. In an hour? See you then. So this is a way of setting objectives and actually thinking about objectives in a really cool way, and I really like this one. So the way that this works is that you have like an objective. My objective is to have a game that is successful, right? Then the next thing that you should think about is, what does that actually mean, right? Because just saying a game is successful is open to interpretation. Does that mean that my mother likes it? Or does that mean that it has 1 billion downloads, right? There's quite a difference between the two. So you need to think, what are the measurements for this, for the success of this objective? And you need to have them clear and achievable, right? So a game is successful or whatever, you can put that whatever you want there, right? Um, I don't know. I don't know, get better at setting up my meetings. Well, how do you measure the success for that? Well, I'm never late for any of my meetings, or for 90% of my meetings, I'm there at, at the moment where they are set up. I don't cancel any meetings, whatever. You need to have a way of clearly and objectively measuring that. And it's usually you need to have a number in there. 90% of my meetings, I'm going to be there, right? It means that, right now I'm at 50%. I'm really shitty at this. Not me, just giving an example. I need to take that to 90%. So you have your measurements, which they don't leave space for interpretation. And then you need to, just those two would be enough. Like, those are my goals. That's the goals. I know how to measure it. In 3 months or whenever, I'm going to check back on them and see if I was successful or not. But you should go 2 steps further. The next step is asking yourself, so how do I do that? How do I get to 90% meetings that are, I don't get late to? And then you start thinking, well, I should have in my calendar a 15-minute alarm before each meeting. I should, I don't know, prepare an agenda for each meeting so I know exactly what I'm going to do. So basically, you start thinking about, what does that actually mean? How do I actually do that, right? What are the actions that I need to take in order to reach that goal? And the last thing that you need to think about is, what's going to stop me from that? Well, I don't know. Outlook doesn't allow me to do that. I don't know. I'm stuff like that. Like, yeah, things that might, stop me from actually achieving this objective. And what this helps you is, you start actually, the first one, like the method is, you actually start planning. Just by thinking about, how do I do that, you start planning. So I need to do that. And another one is, the obstacles is, you start thinking about the risks and how you're going to solve them. Again, it's a framework to really put some thought into the goals that you have. So, okay, you have a goal. How do you actually measure it? Because at the end of the day, you need to make sure that it's successful or not. Then you need to plan for it, and then you need to start thinking about the risks, so you can start thinking about a mitigation plan for it. Again, this is just a tool that I suggest people to use. It's really cool, and I've seen it working. What else do we have? We're nearing the end, by the way. Doom. Yeah, I think we talked about this. Having a vision, a goal, a dream, then, splitting that into multiple objectives, like I shown you before, and then like your personal goals. But let's concentrate on the top one first. I've seen the companies that I've seen personally that were successful are the companies that had a goal that was both crazy but not impossible. So just 2 examples. One of them is King. When I joined them, they were like this super small company, and they had a very clear goal of, we want to be, the top 1 developer on mobile, and this is how we're gonna do it. That was the cool thing. Like, they had like, we need to do these steps. Um, and everybody, like all of us, were like, "It's not gonna happen. That's just freaking crazy. Like you cannot do that." But once we started taking those steps, it becomes a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Just taking the first step, you start believing in that. And obviously, they completely blew past their goal. It was crazy, but there was an idea of a plan behind it, and that was enough to push them towards that goal. The second is Amber. Like Amber, when I joined again, was a pretty small outsourcing company, and then we set up this goal of uh, we wanna be able to offer any type, like the best type of services for anything in the games industry, from the best mobile games to the best AAA games to the best QA services to everything. And we were like, yeah, dude, that's crazy, that's insane, that's too many things. But slowly we're getting there because there was a plan behind it. It's not. It's the difference between somebody coming and saying, "We're gonna land on the sun because I had a dream last night," and somebody saying, "We're gonna." I don't want to give Elon Musk as an example. Jesus. Somebody saying, yeah, we're gonna land on Mars and this is how we might do it. It's still like far-fetched. It's still like, Jesus, probably not. But there's a plan behind it. You believe in that a bit more, right? Uh, Actually, I think that's a good example because the guy might be crazy or whatever, but he's doing it the right way, right? So the plan is to have this rockets and these boosters and this whatever, and people go like, no dude, you're crazy. But once you start seeing those first steps happening, you start kind of believing like, yeah, well, maybe we're actually going to get to Mars pretty soon, right? So there's a difference between just dreaming big without a plan and dreaming big and actually having something to back that up. But also the goal here is to dream big. If your goal is just to I'm gonna develop a game, that's cool. But if that's your goal, that's the most you're going to do, right? You need to aim a bit higher than that in order to reach something really cool. Yeah, I think. Oh my God, we're done. Oops. Yeah. So questions. If you still have questions for me that I haven't answered in. Yeah.
About working with different cultures,
Mm-hmm.
and it came to my attention that our game directors are mostly based in the United
Mm-hmm.
States, and that means that Amber, as an international entity, how do you deal with international cultures and everything about?
Yeah, I mean, you have to be really aware of the fact that there are differences between cultures. Like, there really are differences between cultures. But I think the main thing is that when you hire people, you also hire people that are a good fit for your company culture. You might have, maybe Mexicans have a certain type of culture. Americans definitely have a certain type of culture. Romanians definitely have a certain type of cultures. We really like to be very sad about things and not trust others because of reasons, really good reasons. But you need to be aware of that because I've seen, for example, Americans come into meetings with Romanians going like, "Yeah, well, we're gonna do this, this, and this, and we're gonna fight and do," and all the Romanians go like, "Hmm, what is this guy after?" And the guy was like super open, super, and this guy was like, "Hmm, he's too open and too friendly. What's happening here, right?" And it took them a while to actually realize that, whoa, I need to explain this to them a bit better. I shouldn't have the expectation that they're going to react exactly like some Americans, right? Um, but those are things that you can solve. The most important one is that the people that you hire, no matter where they're hired from or from what culture, they also feed the company one. And the company one is usually just don't be an asshole, right? Which again sounds simple, but it's easy to not enforce that.
Easier said than done, right?
Yeah, but it's about don't be an asshole first of all. Be super open, be super supportive with other people. Don't be afraid to talk and to get feedback to and to give feedback. And once you have that, all the other differences between cultures are solvable, right? But yeah, you definitely need to be aware of the fact that there are differences between culture, because it can make things a bit more difficult, at least for a short time.
Thank you.
No, pleasure. No? Cool. Anything else, guys? Did you get what you wanted from this, or at least something? Just tell me it's gonna be helpful for you. Otherwise, I hope I didn't waste your time doing this. Yeah, this is just use some of these tools that I presented here. I'm gonna share the deck with everyone. Yeah, use this. It's not rocket science. It's just humans, and that means you need to have a lot of well, respect for everybody else, but also take your time with people. I have never seen in this industry somebody that wants bad things for others or is like assholes. I actually never met them. Or I've met them, but I understand why they were assholes, and they were assholes because they were usually afraid of something. They presume that people are going to be mean to them, so they were mean just by default. Um, it's a cool industry. People are super supportive. People are super passionate about what they do. We just need to take care of them, and that's it. Cool. Thank you, and thanks for another comment. Jet, is it a good one?
Thanks to you.
A tip on how to be a good producer if I'm working remotely and I cannot constantly see the work being done by my team. So a tip on how to be a good producer if I'm working remotely and I cannot constantly see the work being done by my team. Anybody wants to answer this? Roy? No? So there's a question here. What's a tip on how to be a good producer if I'm working remotely and I cannot constantly see the work being done by my team?
Right now, I understand that's a problem because, yeah, work remotely, you are not able like just go to the place of the artist to see how it's going. It's basically keeping good communication, keeping constantly with the artist, saying, reviewing what he's doing, and having this system of product control like Jira or any other platform where you can create the cards where you are constantly seeing day by day what are they doing is the best way to keep track of the work.
Yeah. So tracking, project tracking, things like Jira. I really suggest meeting them at some point. Just making sure that they see that you're a real person and you see that they're a real person. That's usually super important. I don't think you need to constantly see the work. You don't need to breathe down the neck of people constantly. Just make sure that they deliver whenever you need to, again, validate the things that they need to deliver. Trust them, give them feedback, and when possible, go meet them face to face. And if not, use Jira or Slack or anything else. Cool. Thank you guys. Thanks so much. I guess I'll see you in 2 years. Whew. What?
What does that mean?
Well, I've been here 2 years ago, and I done this one 2 years ago. Diplomas. Do I get one?
Yeah.
Yeah. How do I open this? Okay. Yes, Marco. Polo. Boom. Luis Enrique. Polo.
Thank you.
Fernando. Man, Roy. I think we're missing one. Nitsi. What are we doing? Yeah, I'll sign it. No, don't worry about it. Cool. Thank you, everyone. Okay. Together.